I think Roccat is the stronger team, but they play more standard and we can like outplay them this way because standard is predictable.
Steve wants to find Power of Evil and he does!
Wow.
They are famous for being like surprising, so we'll have to watch out for many things.
Because the Church is the next focus. I've seen this with Unicorns so many times, and it's going to happen again. Hillesang is down, and Roccat channeled their inner fanatic to defend their Nexus turrets.
It's not like they have the best players, right? But they use some different strats.
A quadra kill just like that for the Orianna. Can he secure it up? Yes, he can. A pentakill for Power of Evil.
We adapt really fast and we can surprise the enemy.
We got Echo!
It's going to be difficult just because they can pull off something weird. But for now, let's take it step by step.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to day 2 of the European LCS Summer Quarterfinals. We're coming to you live from our studio in Berlin, Germany. As you can see, the crowd is absolutely ready to go for this quarterfinal. Just a few minutes ago, Roccat was at the pool talking some strats. Push them in. No, just kidding. And there are the Unicorns of Love walking in the building, getting ready for their quarterfinal with Horo there right at the end, of course. Hello, I'm Evie Schok supporter, and alongside me is James Stress O'Leary and Martin the Fisho Lunga as we look towards our second quarterfinal matchup of the summer playoffs between the Unicorns of Love and Roccat. Let's start by pulling up that bracket after yesterday's action. And well, what a landslide victory for H2K over Giants.
Blink and you miss it was the name of yesterday's game because 3-0 real quick win for H2K over the Giants. And you know, now they have to go on and face Origin in the next semi-final coming up on Saturday this coming week. So that's a really interesting series between those two, but we're not quite at the semi-finals.
No, I mean, another interesting one is this quarterfinal. Unicorns Roccat should be a lot closer compared to what we saw yesterday between the two teams. Obviously, the winner will go on and face Fnatic, so not exactly the ideal opponent you want to face, but still you're going to fight for more championship points and so on.
Yeah, that is what the important thing is here as well, those championship points. Yesterday, H2K got at least 90 championship points for the season, which ties them with the Unicorns of Love for now, which adds another extra dimension to this quarterfinal.
Yes, a lot of pressure on today's game for the Unicorns. The Unicorns must win today, not only to go through the playoffs, but to keep their chances of going to Worlds alive. Otherwise, H2K, they're in the prime position to qualify for Worlds from the championship
If Fnatic
points.
wins, which
Yes.
is what
If Fnatic wins. I mean, if things go as a lot of people are predicting, the team with the most championship points at the end of the season, they're going to clinch that second seed into the World Championships.
Yeah, and of course the other teams, if you're not the one who's winning the EU LCS, you will play the regionals or the regional qualifier after our World Final, after our EU LCS final. Could be the World Final, who knows. As you can see here, Giants already locked in their spot because, again, they're lowest in the points. All the teams in playoffs will be qualified for this regionals here. However, you got to start at the first round if you're low on championship points. That is Giants that didn't pick up anything from last split. And then you work your way up. If you win after taking basically 3 best out of 5s in Giants situation here, you make it to Worlds as a third spot.
Yeah, it also means that 3 out of the 6 teams that were in the playoffs, we will see at Worlds. As I said, it might be scary or a good thought depending on who you're supporting. But that does bring us to today's quarterfinal match where the 4th seed, the Unicorns of Love, will face the 5th seed place Roccat in a best of 5. And clear your schedule because as soon as things wrap up here in Berlin, we'll send it over to Los Angeles for the North American LCS quarterfinal between Gravity and Team Solo Mid.
And that's a really intriguing story that's come behind this, the quarterfinal over in America. You know, here we've had Fnatic remain victorious. Normally it'd be TSM, Cloud9 at the top of North America, but TSM, they're in the quarterfinals, not getting straight through to the semifinals. So a lot of pressure and a lot on the line for the TSM and Gravity lineups later today.
And also just a lot of unanswered questions. I mean, how does it work now with the coaching staff over there? Can Bjergsen once again become the big carry, or is it the rest of the team that got to step up around him? There's so many questions for Team Solomid and also Gravity. I mean, they've been very exciting to watch.
Yeah.
I don't think this game is going to be more than at least 4. It's going to be, for at least 5 games.
Yeah, I think for both series, we're in for quite a treat. And as we turn to the matchup at hand, we want to get your thoughts. Hop on Twitter and tell us which champion are you still waiting to see played on patch 5.14 and why?
The Gangplank.
Yeah.
We saw him. We saw him in NA. It was played yesterday. It was okay, I think, in Europe. A lot of the top laners probably have already practiced the Gangplank. They're probably ready to pull him out, but there are safer picks to go for. So unless you are like down maybe 2-0 and you gotta try and turn it around, you want to try something surprising, Gangplank could be the way to go.
I'm along the same lines. The Tahm Kench is one that I'd like to see. We have seen it just like we've seen a little of the Gangplank, but I think both champions, we need to see how players are refining them. Gangplank, it's the barrel mechanics. Tahm Kench, how do you utilize the ultimate? How do you utilize the devour mechanic? There's a lot still to learn from those champions.
Tahm Kench, Gangplank, let us know who you still want to see on the Rift and tweet at Owl Esports. Of course, use that hashtag LCS, and we'll check out all your answers later here on the desk. And now, it's time to take a look at the two teams setting up on stage right now, the Unicorns of Love and Roccat. For the UOL, they will be starting on the blue side for Game 1. Vizicachi, Horo, Power of Evil, Vardax, Hylissang, and Sheepy, of course, with their brand new jungler in the mix, setting up on stage against Roccat, who are on the red side for this one, with, of course, Steve, Jankos, Nukeduck, Mr. Riles, Vander, and Yamato Cannon. Well, if we look at the story of these two teams, maybe through the entire season, they are 2-2. In my opinion, maybe Roccat looking better in the last couple of weeks, even though the Unicorns have a better record.
Right. I think the key here for both teams, it's inconsistency. I mean, that's obviously not the key to win for them. That's something they need to fix. And it's been the same story. I mean, we see Roccat the last few weeks beat some of the top teams and then still lose to some of the bottom teams. Unicorns have done the same. And I feel like playstyle-wise, there's just a lot of stuff they need to work on. I mean, for Roccat, way too passive in the early game, and Unicorns of Love play way too much around Power of Evil. They gotta get these side lanes going, otherwise it's not gonna work out.
I think it's one of the real big points about this game is both teams like to end up playing passive in the early game. They've been playing Power of Evil on these later scaling mid laners, and just as a team playing around that, they've been a little bit rough when it comes to the early game in a lot of the games we've seen.
I almost feel it's kind of weird saying Unicorns play passive in the early game, because I think that's been the problem. They don't. They tend to, again, play super aggressive, even though they don't have the right champions for it. Again, when they play the APS role in the mid lane, they would try and force ganks around Power of Evil, and you on APS role in the early game, you do nothing. That's where you gotta, again, play a bit more passive, defensive warding, or you need to play again around these side lanes. They're the ones who can make plays in the early game, not your scaling mid laner. Wait for late, then he's gonna do fine. And that's what we have seen for Unicorns. Once they reach the late game, it's working out.
But too many times they do fall behind at that 20-minute mark, and then they can't pick it up anymore.
No, again, so honestly, we had a graphic here showing Unicorns of Love at 20 minutes, all split long. You will notice in 12 out of 18 games, they've been behind. Now, okay, they've come back 4 times. That is the most as well in the EU LCS, so credit to them for bringing it back. But this is just way too often we see these scaling compositions and a team who doesn't know how to hit the brakes. Say, this is not the time to fight. We don't need to contest this dragon. We don't have to go for a risky tower dive. We can wait it out. Roccat is a team that struggles when it comes to making the aggressive plays. So if that remains the same, Unicorns might be able to get it to late game and then pull out some wins.
They might, but to me, that mid lane matchup is incredibly important. Yesterday, we saw Giants, of course, who lean so much on Pepinero, who has been going for those scaling champions, but the meta seems to have shifted out of his favor, and I feel that maybe for Power of Evil, he's in the same boat.
He's in a very similar boat, yeah. And honestly, Power of Evil, when we look at it, in the first 15 minutes of the game, he's actually the lowest ranked player when it comes to kill participation at 15 minutes. Nukeduck, on the other side, you can see considerably more involved, 9, 4, and 10 overall at 15 minutes. But honestly, Nukeduck, just in general, has been going from strength to strength throughout this split. We saw it, the turnaround with the Varus, with the Victor, and just week after week, he's actually been putting in very strong performances.
Finally, almost, as you say.
Sure, I mean, he's living up to the hype. We saw also when he faced Fnatic, managed to get some kills on Febiven, even forcing him to flash into a wall. I mean, that's skill. But the key thing here also between these two guys is I feel like Nukeduck's champion pool is a lot more meta. He's played Victor, he's played a lot of Azir as well. Again, he took the Varus once it became a big thing with the poke. And the Yasuo pick coming in, which is so extremely strong against other poke champions. And what we see Unicorns play time and time again is these scaling poke champions. The Yasuo pick would either have to be a ban, or Unicorns have to step away from that approach and play something different. Maybe we can see the likes of the Syndra coming in, even though that can still be tricky for Power of Evil in that mid lane. But we need more early game focus if they want to play the style we normally see, because they cannot pick these poke champs into a Yasuo, into the likes of a Victor as well, where Nuke Dog can really punish him in the laning phase because Jankos will gank for him. Obviously, the poke could work fine later on then, but that's not the case.
You know, I think it's really interesting. We heard Hylissang talk earlier about how, you know, predictability can play into this with regards to Roccat. I actually think, and we were talking about this earlier, how predictable Unicorns can become at this point as well. We've looked at their picks and bans, very similar week on week. So it'll be interesting to see whether we do see any of the Gouda that the Unicorns have brought out. But one thing that isn't as predictable this time around, they've changed up their jungler.
Yep.
The jungle substitution now with Horo coming in for Gilius does add a different dynamic here on this matchup.
Yeah, definitely, and that is so important, especially when you're playing Roccat. And how good or how bad Roccat has been doing throughout the split of the season, Jankos has always been there. He's a rock for that team.
Yeah, he's the rock. He's the backbone of everything Roccat does in the early game. If he has a good start, and that's also why you see the 100%, you know, kill participation on the first spots, because the lanes don't really get the kills on their own. They need Jankos to come and assist them. So when he knows what to do in the early game, if he knows exactly where he should apply the pressure, Roccat can start getting early leads. But again, it's not consistent enough. That's been the problem for Roccat as a team. Suddenly they mess up a lane swap, and the next time Jankos is ganking the wrong lane, or he misses that first gank here and it goes horribly wrong, and then everything just slows down. The team becomes more reactive than proactive, and then we start getting these late game team fights where everything can happen, and it's not even guaranteed Roccat is going to win there.
That's quite interesting, because Horo is in there now, so might not necessarily know all of his jungle pathing or where he's going to go, which could be a plus or a minus for the Unicorns of Love, because they have to, with their sometimes sloppy decision-making, there's a new voice now in there. How will it work?
It's a new voice. It's also a voice that we haven't seen in competitive since leaving MYM in the spring split. I was actually talking to Sheepy's dad a little bit before, who has a lot to do with the Unicorns team, and he was talking to me about how Horo's fitting in. Apparently fitting in very well, and just in general seems to be fixing a lot of the little problems that the Unicorns of Love have had. However, one of the big problems they've had is to do with that shot calling. And it's a problem that we've seen with Horo a little bit as well, is if a team isn't always backing up his calls, Horo's the type of player that is going to go for an engage if he sees it. If the team aren't behind him, the Unicorns of Love are going to have to really difficultly balance team fights, because we've seen how they play. It's all on getting Power of Evil into those team fights. If he's not on the same page as Horo, it's going to be a tough set of series.
Yeah. All in all, it's going to be a really, really tense series, I think. And as the teams near picks and bans for Game 1, let's check in with Pulse, who's on stage with the coaches for the UOL and Roccat.
Thank you very much, Afia. I'm stood here with Yamato and Sheepy ahead of their game just to talk about how they think this one's going to go. Now, first off, Yamato Cannon, the community has criticized you for potential inconsistencies on your team, but over the last couple of weeks, you guys have definitely stepped up. Do you feel that's going to play a factor into playoffs?
I feel there's a consistency in our inconsistency. There's usually the first game of the week is the bad game, and then the second game of the week is the good game. So with that in mind, I feel a best of 5 is the perfect kind of setting for us.
Okay, well, Sheepy, I kind of want to ask you the same sort of question, but you guys, you were 9-9 when you were in spring, and now coming into this one as well in this playoffs, it didn't seem to matter in spring. Do you think the Unicorns are going to perform just as well in summer?
I think there's no real excuse for us. I think we're just inconsistent, but with Horo coming in, I think a lot of this stuff just has come really natural to us, and we're trying to improve as much as possible about that. I'm just really excited to see how things are planning out right now, because we really try to fix the inconsistency from us.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Horo. I actually want to ask you about that. Now coming into this best of 5, how has it been like integrating Horo into the team?
He's honestly a fantastic guy. He has helped me as well a lot with coaching, because the mindset he's bringing into the team, I think, is exactly what you need in a team. And I think that his mindset is also very consistent based. So coming from the Korean scene, I think this will help us a lot.
Oh, very interesting. We'll see how that works out, Sheepy. Now, Yamato, you guys are going up against the Unicorns. We know the Unicorns have a propensity towards Gouda. Have you prepared anything special for this matchup?
Well, they prepare cheese, I prepare ham. So you could say this best of 5 is a sandwich, but I think Unicorns of Love is going to go home hungry.
Go home hungry. Do you have anything to answer from that one, Sheepy?
Well, either way, they'll go ham or they go home. So let's see.
Oh, and on that bombshell, we're going to find out from Jankos what it means to him to be in the summer playoffs.
being in play is so important. Like, I don't know, it's just such a relief that we still can be the good team, you know, that we are not relegation team, that we are not like super bad. Like maybe we are not the best either. Maybe there's like better teams out there still, but we can prove ourselves in playoffs. And I think in a BO5 our team should work better.
Well, I'm certainly hoping everybody's as hungry as I am for these teams to go ham. My name's Trevor Quickshot Henry, here to cover all of the action with the help of Mitch, Crepo, Forceballs, as the Unicorns of Love and Roccat are readying up for picks and bans. Crepo, what are we expecting from these teams, and what do you want to eat?
The talk about the sandwich actually made me hungry, so expecting. Both these teams are behind at 10 minutes. Only one of them is very slightly ahead, that's Roccat. They're like 300 gold ahead at like 20 minutes, so nobody can get behind, you know. Well, at least one of them will get to have to get ahead. So I want to see like how they use that to their advantage. Whether we'll see when two teams that are classically called boring face off against each other, either the game will go really long or things will go absolutely mental in the early game. And I'm hoping for the latter, but we'll see. Well,
knowing Horo and how he played in the spring split, tending to go in aggressively often, maybe that can help out Unicorns' early to mid-game decision making. It's something that we've criticized both of these teams for, in fact, and somewhat surprisingly, Lulu banned straight out the gate from UOL.
Also, a lot of these teams opted for a red side when they're in their side choice selection. That means that they want to counter pick later for potentially mid lane or whatever lane they leave open until last. However, that puts pressure on the Elise and Italy bans for the blue side team, obviously, you know, because you have that first pick to your disposal. You can lock in one of those really strong junglers, and Jankos is really known to play like these type of junglers that invade on their own merit and just try to control the enemy jungler that way. I want to see if Horo is ready for that, and who's going to pick Elise, who's going to pick Nidalee. Will they just trade them evenly and ban out other things? So many options in this new patch. And very targeted bans thus far. Janna, Fizz, and Lulu from Unicorns towards Roccat. Elise is still up, Nidalee is still up. So if UOL wanted a safe jungle pick and it's not banned, that could hold some of their cards. I don't like the Janna ban against Vander specifically because I feel when you watch Roccat play, they rely very heavily on his engage to make something happen. If it isn't Steve teleporting and flanking, it almost has to be Vander on the likes of Alistar. So getting Alistar to Vander is playing into Rocket's hands, in my opinion. Well, one thing that was used by Power of Evil's hands was that Orianna secured the only pentakill of the European LCS with his Runeglaive Orianna, in fact, several weeks ago. That will not be viable. First pick Sivir from UOL, and there's this Alistar you were expecting from Vander. Again, prior to that, yes, we have the pentakill from Power of Evil. Yes, as I forget his name. It's early, guys, here. It's the first game of the day. Let's take it slow. No. You had that pentakill, but before that, his stats weren't all that impressive. He played very far back in lane, had to scale up, no pressure. Again, everything that we were talking about, that was just bad for Unicorns. So again, yes, you're banning out things. I feel like you're almost helping the other teams with these bans. Yeah, 5 games Power of Evil used Orianna, and he lost 3 of them. Yep. So not the greatest statistics. Several deaths. KDA is around 3, which isn't terrible. Roccat ran the clock down. They've got that engage tool from Vander, Alistar, and they did lock in Elise. And just before we move on to the picks, Roccat banned out Kalista against Vardax. He is not a Kalista player. He has left it open on multiple occasions, even when it was the best solution to pick by a large margin. Then they gave him the free Sivir without having the Kalista to trade for. Again, I think this is a drafting mistake by Roccat. However, because Unicorns of Love were pinched in the AD carry position, they lock in Sivir immediately. This gives Roccat, in my opinion, a fantastic opening with Elise and Alistar. So much potential. It fits in almost any composition. Alistar is fantastic for Vander when it comes to engaging. And I want to see if Jankos can make this Elise work. And it looks like we have a Rek'Sai as an answer, not the Nidalee that we were potentially expecting. So Horo going for the, the map-wide play, having the global ultimate to assist the lanes at various stages of the game. And what may be a Nautilus top lane or support to round it out. Yeah, keeping their cards close to the chest, as it were. For Unicorns, locking in that early Sivir as well will help shore up some of the weaknesses that Vardax has had throughout the split, not really shining in contrast to a lot of other AD carries. 2 more picks coming in there, Kog'Maw and Rumble, but also potential flex on that Cog. I think the Sivir pick is fantastic for Vardax because he fulfills the utility role within his team. He is not one of the carries for Unicorns of Love. He just has to scrape by. He gets around the same amount of percentage farm in his team that Rallis does. I think it's around the 23% mark. So they're very similar in that regard. Having added utility for his carries on his team, I think is fantastic with the Sivir pick. However, it does allow Roccat to get away with a Kog'Maw pick in lane and just get that scaling up towards, because Rallis later in the game positions fantastically well. That's why they got him over Woolite, because he's just a consistent factor that you can always rely on, rather than having very high highs and very low lows.
And of course, for that Cogmore, if Mr. Oz stays on, he has played it already in the summer split, undefeated in that single game, 5-2 and
100%
8.
win rate.
100% win rate. But yeah, 5-2 and 8, and use that positioning that we've talked about. Unicorns will be rounding out their composition. There will also be some engage from Hylissang's Annie. Hilly's roaming is something that he's done several times throughout the split. And Power of Evil on the safe blind pick Victor, which has kind of become the norm in recent weeks.
Yeah, Victor obviously was the third pick mid in our prioritization prior to this patch. You know, we had Jace and Varus slightly higher when the poke meta was rampant. However, this control mage combined with an aggressive support like Annie, obviously locking Nautilus as a top laner right now, this looks like a very mid-game focused Unicorns of Love. They are not going for the late game. They will have to look for dragon fights for a potential 5th dragon aspect as a win condition. If not, a lot of fighting could go on here.
And they're going to have to... Way, right! So, not only have Unicorns gone for this mid-game team comp, I feel they don't have the greatest damage the longer the game goes.
No, they have
more
late-game damage. This is why it's mid-game, but they spike so hard. They have hard engage, they have a lot of CC, good base damage that falls off later in the game. Obviously, Nautilus scales in the tanky department, but later on, we'll have to look at Victor and Sivir. They still can do a lot of late-game damage.
We talked about...
Less, but now, let's get to what's at hand here, Anivia.
Yeah, we talked about the 100% one-game Cogmore for Mr. Rolls. You also have a 100% win rate on Anivia.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a joke. That's fine for a normal season. Let's keep it. What does Anivia offer here?
You tell me.
She has disengage, but she's slow in wrapping up. I'm really interested to see what Nukta goes in terms of build. Will he go for a traditional Athene, say like, do I really need the magic resistance to get through the lane? Am I going to stack up a tier into Roa? Because that is an incredibly slow build. I've tried it, I've failed many times. But it offers disengage, it offers kite. When a team with Nautilus and Sivir's running at you, the Icebird might be enough.
Wow, we'll see if it works out. The teams have locked in their champions. It's time to load up the best of 5 between Unicorns of Love and Roccat.
Like, I'm always honest, so I'll be honest at this time as well. They just don't have the best players, but they are good as a team. If they won't surprise us, obviously we can beat them.
Against Roccat, they play more standard and we can like outplay them this way because standard is predictable.
I don't think like adapting was a big strength of Unicorns last split. I think they were pretty lucky.
I think they will try their best, but we're really, really smart in best of 5s. I think we're gonna win against Roccat.
And we heard strong words from Yankos. Obviously, we can beat them. This is game 1 in the best of 5. The standard, predictable Roccat pull out Anivia for the first time in the summer split. Will it be enough to give themselves an early lead in this best of 5? You know the deal on Twitter. Tell us who you think's going to win.
Yeah, hashtag UL win, hashtag ROC win. However, in the tradition of playoffs, when 4th and 5th seed play each other, this time that is obviously UOL in the 4th seed, Roccat in the 5th. Only one time a team has managed to win as a 5th seed. The other 4...
Higher seed won.
Yep, higher seed usually wins. Although if I recall correctly, that was Unicorns of Love against Gambit, so well, they may have experience with that.
That they do.
Doesn't really matter right now though, because we have Anivia locked in. I still want to look at that. Both mid laners are running cleanse here, so no all-in potential with the Ignite, which honestly helps. Because you have to pick the cleanse for safety later on in the game. It lessens the risk of just getting flashed upon with, you know, Ignite combo and taking you down.
And both supports want to do exactly that. Alistair and Annie want to be jumping into your faces, both mid laners, low mobility, control mages. And we'll get to explore the mid lane matchup a little later. For the time being, the makings of a lane swap appears to be set up, and Roccat grouped for a spotted invade.
Yeah, obviously Alistair in melee range, champion supporting that long range Kog'Maw. They're swapping. I don't know who's predicting who here. I feel Kog'Maw does well into Sivir, but the Alistair obviously gets outranged vastly by Annie. Does have sustain though. So it looks like Roccat is starting the aggressive side here in the enemy jungle. UL are starting in their own jungle, but they have the right side of the map to their disposal. It is normal lanes with a twist, so we'll need to see Steve. He's doing what's become common. He's not shared on the blue buff though, he's just tanking as much as he can for Elise, a very sustaining jungler in her own merit already. See if he gets any experience from that. Steve did get the full Grump experience, so he's now going to base level 2. He wants to teleport down to the bot lane. And obviously we have to track what Chachi did. He also got level 2 and a little bit extra XP, and he's going down to bottom lane. Due to RNG, it's pushing slightly towards Steve. So Chachi lost a couple extra creeps here. All in all, very even, just flip the map around type of start.
Looking at the top laners, Rumble is Steve's second most played champion, and this is the first time that we've seen Chachi on the Nautilus. It has been in the meta for a while, but we need to see how practiced he is on the champion.
Now I like Steve on damage carries because I think it opens another opportunity for Jankos to make plays in the game. Whenever Steve has played, say, split pushers, damage carries, people that pack a punch like Echo, whenever Jankos then ganked for him, it worked out for Roccat. Whenever he played the likes of Maokai and Jankos tried to gank, they just couldn't get the kill, they ended up wasting a lot of time. So in that sense, I like it. However, Steve was one of the key factors for Roccat winning a lot of games with his teleports and his flanks. Rumble obviously is not suited towards that. He just wants to open with Equalizer. Let's see if they can adapt to the different playstyle that will be required.
And of course, these lane locations have traded, but it is standard, it is head-to-head. And this could also slow down the early to mid game, which is something that we've seen both of these teams do.
Yeah, traditionally in a lane swap, obviously the game speeds up. In normal lanes, we can go as long as 10-15 minutes without very much action happening. However, I think this favors Jankos because he likes playing on his own, just 1v1, no lane interference. You know how mid laners say 1v1 me, no jungler?
Yeah.
That's the same thing for Jankos, 1v1 me jungler, no mid lanes. So he could play like that. These team comps as a whole have very interesting play patterns in team fights and around objectives. We'll get into that later once we actually start grouping up. Just really want to track these matches and how especially Anivia does into Victor, because whenever I've played it, I found it incredibly tough to dodge the laser and land my Q. I feel the skill shot from Anivia Q is very high in mana cost, incredibly hard to land, and you get punished so hard when you miss it, so you almost don't want to use it and use it as a zoning tool. This is very interesting though, because Jankos started at the aggressive side. He got that blue buff initially and then moved all the way over. I think this is a 3 buff from Roccat, and now Nukeduck has an extra blue buff at his disposal, and this is key because this allows you to play slightly more aggressive in that level 4 to 6 on Anivia, which is pretty rough if you get pressured early, and it allows you to be full mana once you hit 6. Then you can out-sustain the enemy because you clear the wave so efficiently with your ulti. So this will be very, very good for Nukeduck.
We'll see whether or not he can use it to farm up. Power of Evil's first purchase is a Negatron cloak, Crepo.
That is
really respecting all of the AP damage that's going to come down from actually 4 sources. Of
5 sources,
5, yeah.
if you really want to count the support in there too. So very peculiar opening, but that means Power of Evil is not going for that aggressive mid-game damage Victor control mage spike. He just kind of wants to survive, rely on his base damages, but a Victor that goes full AP, if Horror lands a knock-up, you can immediately burn Anivia down. She has one of the lowest base HPs at the start of the game. I think she's second to the lowest. She starts with 420 HP, which had definitely have fun with 420 there, but yeah. Combo on Vardax.
Vardax gets caught by the headbutt, pulverized. Vanda and Musteral's trying to chase. There's a stun from Hylissang. The Ignite is burning, and that Vardax forced to flash defensively. Last tick gets
Where was his spell shield?
very close.
How do you get comboed without a spell shield? That's what I wonder.
Well, don't have the answer for that right now. Mr. Riles and Vanda.
He still has heal though, so he did the calculations. Came out safe.
But despite the lane deficit between Alistair and Annie, Vanda finds a great opportunity. And this is something you talked about being key in picks and bans. Vanda's aggressive plays.
Yeah, Vanda's aggressive plays. In addition to that, Rawless has to base on 42, or Vardax has to base rather on 42 CS. Kog'Maw is a Trinity Force type of deal, so you can base whenever you want, and either you finish your Phage, that's nice, but if you don't, you have components. Same for Sheen. Components built easier, but as a Sivir, you really want to get that BF sword. So now, not only are you forced to base early and drop CS, you base it when you're this close to a BF sword, and this is, you obviously can't see this, but I'm holding my fingers like very, very close, guys. And he was about 10 CS off from getting that BF sword and have a comfortable first base where you can start trading. Now he's stuck on a pickaxe, and then obviously we'll delay him, and this will give more power to Rawless, especially when we hit the level 6 mark. Kog'Maw has a fantastic spike in lane when he hits level 6.
And with Power of Evil going for the defensive build, and the fact that Sivir is more of a utility than necessarily a high damage ADC, Unicorns, I want to see where they're going to find their battles. A little bit of a ward.
This is what we see when games are stale. It revolves or devolves into ward wars. The jungler and the support meet up and they fight for that pink ward. And both hordes go down. Good spacing from Vander on his abilities. Knocks him back, auto attack. He comes back in, knock him up, auto attack. Then the ward fades, but you get the final auto attack for that ward. Looks like we'll be going.
Ward killing mechanics, Kremlin.
Hey, it's important. You could have screwed that up. And this is obviously the brush where you can always find a pink ward. If you're playing against even low-level teams, always check that brush. That one and the pixel brush for pink wards. You really need that map control. And then you want to slowly edge your vision control forward. Look at this wave pushing in the bottom. This allows Vander to be moved up as a resource. He now goes onto Hylissang for a bit of a poke. Follow up from Kog'Maw. That's the way you want to play that lane. Peeling from Alistar and then a free ulti plus E plus a W proc from Kog'Maw, and then you whittle away using your maximum range as advantage. Whereas Annie and Sivir just want to flash on you.
Yeah.
Just immediately kill you, blow
All
you
in.
up.
Yeah, all in. We were talking about Nukeduck's build. It's gone for the tier. Well, look at that again. Kog'Maw and Anivia, really good if they go even into the mid game. And currently Rocket's going very even in the first 10 minutes.
That's something I wanted to talk about once we get to these objectives. It looks like Rocket's going for an approach where they say, okay, Unicorns, you're running a run at me comp. Well, that's fine. We're comfortable doing that because we have one of the best kiting mages in the game. Put your ultimate down on Nivea, walk back. You have to walk into the Nivea Q, which can stun in AoE, and you have the wall to force people to walk in those predictable movement patterns. In addition to that, while all you're doing is watching Anivia, you have the peel from, walking to Cocoon. You have to walk by an Alistar, then Kog'Maw is untouched. It'll become a backline carry type of deal, and if Rallis can get going, get a lot of farm priority #1 in this game in my opinion, and get a lot of peeling, then he can solo carry with the help of his team.
And if you get past all of that, there may be an equalizer on top of your head as well. Steve is a little bit behind in CS after the early sort of bottom lane trade, but I do want to mention Jankos seems to be going for a tank Elise, so that will give a little bit more of a front line when added with Alistar.
Now when he does that, I want to see if he maxes his Cocoon later on second, or if he just maxes both his W and Q and goes for higher base damage. When I see Elise though, I think early aggression, I really want to see an opening like UOL is forcing here.
Well, Steve does have his equalizer. The Cocoon does connect onto Horo. Equalizes out. Horo's going to look for a tunnel to escape. Steve is in trouble. The repel drops Jankos onto Horo's head. He's going for the new jungler. One more to attack. Red buff is ticking. That's Hylissang. He's come in. First blood secured by Hylissang's Tibbers and Ignites.
Out of nowhere, Hylissang shows up in the top lane. We were watching that duel and we were slowly starting to realize why Elise is such a good early game jungler, because of her counter gank potential. But fantastic read. How did Hylissang get there all of a sudden? I'll have to watch that again later on, but this roam is crucial, and this is what Hylissang does best, and honestly what has kept UOL even in this series. Let's watch this again. UOL, look, right now, Hylissang is all the way at the bottom tier 1 because this fight goes so long. Jankos already backed off. If this happened like 5 seconds earlier, Horo would be dead, because we would have lost the time that Jankos took to walk there. He goes for the auto attack, one more red buff because Horo is regenerating in his burrowed form. Obviously now gets the dangerous game perhaps. If he's running that, I doubt it, but just gets the level up perhaps and survives. But the most important part is that Hylissang is winning this map because he knows he can let his AD carry farm on his own merit. Maybe drop a couple CS here and there, but that's fine because Vardak is not a one-man carry that Mr. Rallis is. Vardak is utility for the Unicorns.
And worked out in Unicorn's favor. For sure. They've got themselves a gold lead thanks to those 2 kills. I did also see Nukeduck roaming from the mid lane once that fight started, but it was always too late. Hilly was going to get there quicker. And only mention it because he's also picked up a catalyst. So
it's incredibly hard to roam on a Nivea because you need so many entry-level items. Step into mid-game requires at least a tier. And then if you want to do a variation, you maybe skip the catalyst. But he doesn't even have boots yet. Compare that to Power Evil, who obviously can speed him up whenever he Qs. He has boots 1. Picks a little bit of a safety with the negative cloak. Not sure if I agree. I think he can deal with the Anivia matchup fine early on, but he probably was just scared of the combination of Elise and Anivia. However, props to Unicorns of Love for not dying to any Elise ganks early. In my opinion, if you hit 50-minute mark and you have 0 kills on Elise, something went wrong. Then you didn't play your draft wrong, because she's a fantastic early game jungler in terms of pressure and just getting advantages.
Jankos, as a jungler, was famous for his early game impact. Horo was looking to punish Steve up top, knowing he had no flash. While he's there, Roccat going to spot Horo, and they did start Dragon slightly earlier though, so objective #1 picked up by Roccat, while Steve is going to get eaten by a dredge line. No more damage to follow up from Chachi.
The kills are also translating into pressure. Look at the CS differential between Chachi and Steve right now. Steve is borderline at 70, yes, maybe picking up some CS here. Say he goes to 78 or something, he is still more than 30 CS behind Chachi, in addition to that kill and assist that Chachi's running. So he's fulfilling his role. He's getting tanky, he'll be hard engaged, he'll soak up damage for his team, and then we'll have to look at how Victor and Sivir can stay even to deal the damage in the team fights.
Jankos trying to help out Roccat push this bottom tower down. And Hylissang, the threat of the Tibbers is back, and Hylissang has gone for very early distortion boots. So you mentioned the rolls.
Contrast to right now. Make a contrast to the amount of boots that are on Rocket side. Only 2 tier 1 boots are finished. So Hylissang is much more mobile than anybody on the Rocket side. Vander is notorious for having the earliest side stone in the European LCS. He averaged around 4 minutes, give or take, to finish that side stone. Hylissang takes a different approach. He was for early Moby boots. Looking to pay off for a fight here.
That's a two-man pulverized. Tibbers comes down on Mr. Ral's head. He's trying to get away. Repel from Jankos is defensive. Vander's taking away with the unbreakable will.
Behind.
But Chachi, with the teleport, is going to be able to help pick up a kill for Horo.
Nukeduck's out of mana.
Was used by Steve earlier, so it's not available. Steve goes down as well. Unicorns of Love get 2 kills.
And this is the problem with a scaling late game build. You can't go for those early fights. Look at how Nukeduck, he has a tier and a catalyst, and he was still in that fight out of mana. Power of Evil straight up just ignored him. He walked next to you, he's like, you are Anivia with no mana? You're not gonna do anything in this fight. Chachi was first with his teleport. Steve was not the one initiating with the flank like Roccat traditionally does. So yeah, advantage Unicorns, but initially looked grim because movement speed doesn't matter when you're locked in these fights. So the Tibbers came out, didn't do all that much, but the additional teleports and the better roam from Power of Evil manifested in winning that fight and a mid tower to boot.
We're 14 minutes into this game. Unicorns have got 4 kills, have got towers, they've got the fan votes. This is not the same Unicorns that we have been watching for the last few weeks. Decisive play, great performance from Hylissang on the early roam, great teleport from Chachi. So initial reading, Unicorns are looking very, very solid to open up the series.
And well, strikes me the most is that they're playing their draft correctly. You can play late game if you draft for that. But Unicorns, obviously, they're coming out with a mid-game oriented draft and they're playing to their strengths. They say, we need to make something happen. We will need to get a lead. So what they do is step 1. We get our teleporter ahead, make him win his lane. He has pressure, therefore he can teleport first. Then we rotate to the utility bot lane. You don't want to gank for a Sivir early, but you can once you have the Tibbers and that on the hunt available. Then Power of Evil was pressuring mid. He managed to roam first or tied with Nukeduck, but because of the pressure he was exerting, Nukeduck had to waste all his mana on wave clearing. And for, you know, resource advantage from the Unicorns, and they're playing it out well. But can they transition? Unicorns have won while being 3,000 gold down, so you can also technically lose them in that regard because they will get outscaled perhaps.
Especially against the wave clear that Anivia is going to offer. The one thing I want to see from Unicorns is how that early dragon from Roccat will impact their mid to late game. Roccat are going to pick up a tower. Jankos has showed his face several times here to push this down.
You say wave clear from Anivia, but one of the reasons I feel Anivia has fallen off as a pick is the new Baron buff and the interaction with the creeps. Obviously, creeps take less magic damage. Even back in the day, when you would get the Baron buff, you could still clean those minions because the Baron buff wouldn't affect them. You could endlessly stall, put a wall, put ultimate, a couple of spells, and people couldn't enter the base without straight up walking into Anivia. Nowadays, those minions are strong enough, add a Banner of Command in there, immune to magic damage. Then you have your siege potential. Anivia, obviously, just like Steve here, is a pick that likes walking backwards and kiting. But every step you take backwards, you open up the map for your enemies.
I like that analogy, Grappo. There's the Chachi clearly winning the trade with Steve up top, continuing to grow that CS lead. It's now up to 40. He's got a lot of tankiness already, and he's going to have a roam from Power of Evil.
As we see this dive here in the top lane, Steve should just go down. I just want to touch on the fact that we talked about how many magic damage components there are on Roccat, and it begs the question, is it not too many? Are they lacking in physical damage? Because Chachi now is getting a lead, and he's very efficiently stacking magic resistance. There's an Aegis completed on Horo already. This opens up for an engage item on Annie. On Hylissang, he no longer has to build that, so he might go.
Oh,
good flash.
Wow! Great flash from Hylissang. Tibbers is still available. Not going to be needed or used. And Unicorns fall back. Nukeduck now finds himself on the wrong side of a gravity field. There's a roam from Hylissang coming in as well. Power of Evil gets stunned, but insta-cleanses. Hylissang does not have a flash, remember. He used it defensively. Tibbers will not be thrown yet. Hylissang's holding onto the trigger finger. And Roccat managed to escape with their lives, but they do lose Nukeduck's flash.
You see, and this is the lack of pressure Roccat is exerting, and they're getting punished for it. They just don't have the resources to take these extended fights and trades and roams because they're still scaling up. Kog'Maw wants to hit later on. He now hits his Triforce. Look at Nukedog. He's still lacking in combat stats. That build takes ages to ramp up. Yes, no Rod of Ages pun involved there, but you're only still sitting on Boots 1. You have not real any AP. Yes, you have Rod of Ages finished, but that's another 10 minutes for you to get more mana, more AP. You know, you get a Blasting Wand. You're so far behind. So look at Power Evil. He has CDR boots already. He will cast double the spells you do know almost. He has Abyssal Scepter. He will lower your magic resistances. He's playing for that mid-game spike.
And Unicorns have it. Mid-game well and truly underway. 2 towers secured already. With the kills and the objectives, it means Unicorns have a 3.5k gold lead. And they have more engaged tools. So all of that mid-game can accelerate. Teleports just become available for Chachi. He's got a Righteous Glory. There's a Locket for Horo. And they can use all of these tools to set up the next fight. It seems to be around Dragon at the moment.
It does look like we're heading to Dragon now. When we talk about Vardax, a lot of people give him a lot of flack, but what he does well is stay even. Very rarely will Vardax get a CS lead that is big enough to warrant a big CS. He'd say like over 10 creeps at like 15 minutes, but very rarely will he fall behind. He is one of the best AD carries at going neutral, and if you Unicorns of Love can play off that in their draft, pick him Sivir, and just in their game, you just camp the other lanes and let him go even and then group up with him. And they could yeah, have some advantages like this Dragon they're about to pick up here.
And it's uncontested. Vander stepped in, but Roccat are too late to the party. Also, I don't think they can compete with the tools Unicorns already have. Chachi was also pressuring Steve up top. We saw Steve falling back.
Good poke.
Vander and Mr. Ra is going to defend their pink ward from Hylissang, the threat of those autos.
And that was one of the questions we as the broadcast team were having in the preparation to this matchup. How well were Hylissang and Horo going to synergize in terms of warding together, roaming together, and making picks?
So far, very well. 5-1 up. 20 minutes quickly approaching, and Unicorns going against the trend. We heard from the analyst desk, 12 out of 18 games, Unicorns were down in gold at 20 minutes. This is a great, great showing to start off this best of 5, and they've played standard and safe.
Horo this time invading the enemy red buff, not with his traditional buddy Hylissang as support, but Power Evil has the push in mid. That mid tower's down, so he's joining. This could open up a rotation to the top lane, because look where Nukedog is trying to defend the wave right now. This will probably force a Rumble ultimate from Steve to like make a panic clear here. Nukedog still on those boots 1, has to slowly make his wave up to the top lane, but by now that top lane tower is already on half HP. Reaction in the bottom side of the map, of course, Vardax on his own. That's what we're used to seeing. Unicorns need to be able to trade this for something, because else they just give up a tier 2 tower to Roccat here.
The only thing they really get is deep vision. There is another minion wave conga lining up, and nobody from Rockat's around. So, UOL should secure this tower, albeit slower than Roccat. That's not a big deal.
The bonus is, though, what you mentioned right there, deep vision. And deep vision in the enemy red side if you're blue side. So, deep vision for Unicorns altogether right now is better, because this vision exerts Baron pressure. What Roccat has now exerts Dragon pressure. But the Dragon's already down, we're hitting the 20-minute mark. Sizable lead for Unicorns, and looks like they want more. Just some damage on that tier 3 tower here. But they could back off soon and start baiting Baron, and it's gonna be hard for Roccat to face check, because they have a lot of walking back potential. They can kite, they can walk out of these team fights, slowly damage the front line. But face checking, Unicorns have a lot of tools to punish. Look at the speed ups that can come out of Chachi, immediately hard engaged. You have Moby Boots and Hylissang too, Flash Tibbers. Can be enough to win that fight.
Unicorns have not traditionally been a Baron team. They have some tools to make a play for it this game, though. Only secured 8 Barons. In contrast, Roccat have picked up 16 over the split. And we mentioned those leads. We talked about the gold. Unicorns have actually won 5 out of 6 games when they have had a lead at 20 minutes. So statistically and historically, they're in a good position. But we still have to keep saying there is that ticking time bomb. Cog will grow in power, and Nevia will grow in power. Steve, even though he's behind, is still going to be impactful. But Roccat need to find the right opportunity.
Horde only just now picked up his boots. Tier 1 boots with a no magic mantle, building into Mercury Thread. That item is key in this matchup. You have to get tenacity when you face Elise and Nivea. Kog'Maw slows to an extent. And just like the sheer amount of magic resistance you get from that item is obviously what you want as a team.
Roccat continuing to grow. That Rod of Ages almost fully stacked for Nukedog. He picked
Adaptation.
Up a Void Star early.
Adaptation in his build, because he can no longer finish that that mana item, you know, that scales very slowly in his build, he now has to say, okay, we need power immediately. What do I get? I'll just go for a Void Staff over my traditional Archangel Staff that I would go second. So Roccat has to compromise because he's behind. He's even in CS, but Power of Evil right now has been doing more with the CS. But they need to keep translating these because these tier 1 towers will eventually fall pseudo for free. Will they trade it for a tier 2 tower on the bottom though? Looks likely.
It looks to be the case. Oh, Steve's got caught! Tibbers comes down as well. He's knocked up. Steve couldn't do a thing, and Unicorns get a kill in a tower.
Roccat is consistently a step behind. The Yamato Cannon in the pre-match interview said, well, we'll go ham if they go cheese, but so far, looks like the other way around. A bit of a cheesy lineup from Roccat here, and definitely going ham. Pinball from Vander.
In a little bit of trouble. Not going to be able to dredge line out. So, Inhibitor Turret loses 30% HP. Chachi, the only victim of the engage. Unicorn's still looking pretty.
Yeah, they're buying a bit too much into this chaos. Obviously, you can't siege like that into a Nivea and a Alistar. They'll just wall you off, knock up the first target, knock it back into the base. But Unicorns have now learned their lesson. Let's see if they can translate this pressure into the Baron area. I really feel the Baron buff is what you need to beat this lineup. 5 magic damage components, no real people that can clear the wave with 80 base spell. The only really auto attack that's going to come out. You don't have no Sivir Boomerang or the likes of that. All you have is Kog'Maw auto attacks to clear these minions that are so strong against magic damage, unless you want to AoE them slowly with your magic damage. So Unicorns should be looking for the next dragon in 1 minute, then rotate around their vision towards Baron. That should be their win condition.
It's a clear one for Unicorns. They've maintained this gold lead for the better part of 12 minutes. As soon as Unicorns moved out of the laning phase, they've knocked down towers, but it has been a trade. Almost every time Unicorns have pressured, they have lost 1 tower, but Unicorns are just itching out more, and right now Unicorns are grouped up around Baron before the dragon has even spawned.
Very interesting that we see a double Righteous Glory on the side of Unicorns of Love. Hylissang is opting for Righteous Glory even after Chachi has it. Traditionally, you see 1 Righteous Glory and 1 Talisman of Ascension, so you at least have 1 defensive speed-up component should Sivir ulti fail. But Unicorns are saying, we're going in with no escape plan. We're just going, either we kill them or we're dead. That is
best
a bold approach.
No, the best defense is a good offense.
Well, I like both. Best defense is good offense, but at least have an escape plan. If you're stuck around that wall. Roccat is notorious for dragging to late game, though, and that 3,000 gold lead we were talking about earlier is still there. So as the gold goes up, obviously, relatively speaking, 3,000 gold means less and less as the match progresses.
Dragon means more and more, though, and Unicorns secure the second before Roccat can get into place. Good vision. What I like from Roccat Unicorns play, though, is they got a little bit of wards around Baron, and then they drop down to Dragon. So got the vision and then sort of fell back relatively safely. And if they want to make a play on Baron, they can.
Due to the high mobility on Unicorn's lineup, Roccat is afraid to split up to get picked off. Here we go, Hylissang speed up.
Righteous Glory was thrown down. Doesn't find a target. There's no flash for Hylissang, though. Vander, he's feeling he wants this fight, and he's gone in on Hilly. He's going to throw down the Unbreakable Will. Equalizer will split up Unicorns. Horo's off to the side. He's forced to tunnel away, and the Chaos Storm is wreaking chaos on the Roccat backline. The Death Ray comes out. Chaos Storm continues to tick. A flash forward from Power of Evil will not be enough to secure the kill, but he gets positional advantage.
I still think it's too early for Roccat to brute force these engagements, even though some cooldowns get used on the Unicorns. What could the Unicorns have done? Like, they could have never engaged on this Roccat lineup because the counter engage is too strong. However, if you start eliminating counter engage potential by using it as engage, Vander going in, nobody followed up on that combo. He had to use his ultimate. He was 60% HP. Steve's equalizer essentially was wasted. Imagine if they could use that to their advantage by kiting backwards, stalling for time, scaling into the late game. I think that was the better strategic approach. However, Roccat probably feel like they're farther behind than they actually are. And that forced that a little bit, you know, too heavy of an engage.
Sometimes those heavy-handed moves can cost more. Roccat and Unicorns, though, come away unscathed. And Vision slowly being cleared out, but Unicorns still relatively good vision. They've had deep wards most of the time. They've pushed into Rocket's territory.
But it doesn't matter. Like, vision around Baron doesn't matter unless it's perfect. Because it doesn't matter if you have 6 wards in the enemy jungle and your enemy only has 1 ward on Baron. That's enough to figure out what you're doing. They will not face check unless the Baron area is completely dark. For that, you need upgraded oracles and a couple of extra pink wards to force him to face check. Especially with Kog'Maw, with Scrying Orb, with his ultimate, he can check a lot of brushes. So there's safety in terms of stalling out for Roccat. They're only 3,000 gold behind still. The 5th dragon is still very far away because Roccat managed to pick up one of them, so they, by no means are they out of the game. They just have to realize how they have to play these fights and play accordingly.
Well, for Unicorns, they're looking for more opportunities now. Dragon's a few minutes away. We do see Nukeduck, he's going to secure his own blue buff. That tier is almost fully stacked. And I also just took a quick look at Jankos' skill order. It is still just rank 1 in the Cocoon, so the 1.6 second stun is all he's focusing on for the time being.
Another itemization peculiarity, let's not call it a mistake, another egg is picked up on the side of Unicorns of Love, and it's on Chachi. And traditionally when you see double A guy, you start thinking about one will be Banner, one will be Roccat, but for Nautilus it makes more sense to build a Roccat than a Banner, so you'll have a Roccat stack here on 2 members that play in the same areas of the fight. The one reason you can usually defend double Banner or double Roccat is because you play in different areas of the fight and the aura spreads wider. You know, multiple Wi-Fi spots for your internet. Think about that. But it doesn't matter having 2 routers at the same place. It's not gonna help you.
Well, Chachi and Hylissang, rather Chachi and Horo, both sort of want to be on the front line, so we'll see how often they overlap.
Both want to be a team player. Yeah. There's only room for so many team players. You need to carry in between. Sneaky Baron started here. Distraction on the bot lane. Because the jungler's not there, Roccat feel like this is safe. But UL did the math, but they forgot to add in some additional Baron damage. Took a little long, no armor. This is sloppy. If you attempt this, you have to make sure that you have enough damage to pull it off.
So Hylissang died.
Yeah.
Let's just assume he got caught. We didn't actually see exactly how. Roccat now, I've got a numbers advantage. For a couple seconds longer, they are going to be the ones getting
Alistar still has ulti, so he's threatening to dive. He doesn't want to dive, he just wants people to get away from that tower, be scared enough of him, they can open up. Look, that winning wave did not get defended because Vander was zoning on the side. He says, I can dive. I know that you can see that I can do it, so please step away from the tower. Let us take it free. Nobody needs to get hurt. Free tower for Roccat.
Politely step away from the turret, Unicorns, and they respond. Now Unicorns have lost the gold lead. They lost a member of their team on a poor Baron call, lose another inner turret.
And hard engaging straight from the front is incredibly hard because so much defensive tools here.
So Vander's already been caught just a little bit. The crystallized wall comes out, splitting up Unicorns. There's the front line from Unicorns again, and they forced a flash.
Again, I don't think Vander has to go for that combo. I think he can wait for people to get engaged on in his backline and then do the disengage, counter-engage type of combo. Right now, he just opens himself up for free damage, has to use his ultimate, and nobody from Roccat is replying with damage whenever he goes for these defensive combos. He is a pretty smart player, so I think overall he will slowly start catching on. However, they chunked them enough that they can attempt the Baron, but right here, Scrying Orb comes out. Crepo is close.
Unicorns of Love have 2 side lanes pushing. That's not a line we've said many times in the summer split.
They should go into the enemy jungle right now, get deep vision, force Roccat out, because now they can peek at the window for free. They should be scared moving here. Look, they just enter this area for free, and it'll be a 5v5 Baron fight anyways.
Banner of Command was picked up by Chachi. He did not go for another Locket. Baron has been stopped for the time being as Unicorns peel away. Minion waves are still stacking up. They did get Steve's teleport. Chachi has held onto his for the time being. Somebody has to go deal with those minion waves, and it looks like Jankos will be the man to opt into it. Unicorns are really, really trying to force Baron at 30 minutes.
Yeah, they're forcing, and it's the right idea, but it's rash decision making. Let's take a look at this again. How did this play out? Hylissang is going for a fake engage. What he's doing here is basically trying to bluff Roccat. He's saying, hey guys, I'm rushing on you, I'm Annie, you have to be scared, because why else would I be doing this? But because they saw Horo on the map, they were trying to make too many bluffs at once. Horo was at the bottom of the map, so they're trying to bluff, we can never do Baron. Then had 4 remaining members, and suddenly he's going in, but they have flank wards right there, so they felt safe, so they simply just killed off Hylissang, and that was too bold of a bluff to make at this point in the game.
No Oscar for Unicorns of Love. Wow, that's a fast engage. Hylissang and Vardex come running in. Vardex is in a little bit of trouble. Spell Shield's not going to block a lot. Repel comes up from Jankos. He's looking for a target as Horo has been the first victim. The Flash Frost will hold Vizichachi in place for a few moments before Power Veil's running out of mana. Vander with the Flash Pulverize. He manages to catch PoE, but they lose Hylissang. We do see Jankos going down, stepping a little too far forward. Power of Evil comes in. One more hit with Chachi. They secure the kill on Rolls, and the Death Side Embrace is not going to be enough. Now Nukeduck, he's the one that goes down as well. Double kill secured for Vardags before he's finally melted. 9 people dead, and PoE remains.
What an absolute mayhem and fantastic positioning from Power of Evil, honestly, in that fight. That was incredible how he managed to survive that. Initially, it looked grim for Unicorns of Love because look what's happened. They got a hard engage on Anivia, but she has now finished Seraph and Raze, and very much at the end, when people expect her to go into egg form, she pops Seraphs and Raze. Look, boom, extra 300, 400 health, and this takes so long that Unicorns use all their offensive potential, and they go down. The key members to watch here are Rawless, his positioning, and Power Evil, and it looks like they could go down at the whim, both of them at the same time. PoE, fantastic position, gets comboed. He should really drop here, but Steve is peeled. Jankos is being peeled off by Chachi. Chachi traded his life for Power of Evil, and that is the correct thing to do if you're a tank top laner versus AP mid. He snipes out Mr. Rawls eventually, and now Nuktak wants to get that kill on Chachi, but the CC is enough to take down a bird. Power Evil, good cleanse there too, because obviously Nuktak couldn't proc his stun anymore. The shield from his Q keeps him alive. Vander, a little over-eager, wanted to finish off that fight. Advantageous for Roccat, but it wasn't enough. And this is a crucial fight for Unicorns.
Extremely interesting. They got the dragon as well. That was the third of the game, Crepo. I just called that team fight. Hillesang also got another great stun towards the end. And one thing I want to mention, stats guys have informed us, Power of Evil so far has dealt 17,500 damage. Nuktak 7.5k. But he is very strong at the moment. Has that Seraphs, has a fully stacked rod, Void Staff, another needlessly large rod. So Nuktak is...
But in terms of late game damage, Victor still does way more damage than Anivia. Anivia just offers way more control. So if you're trying to catch the Anivia, it is tough. It's the team. But because Unicorns are so far ahead, they can break that barrier. They still have all the map control. But the goal is still relatively even.
Yeah, only 2,000 in it.
And I just want to keep track of those Baron minions if that Banner of Command is being used on the side lanes, because Roccat, they need safety in numbers, because every member that has peel will make your grouping stronger. Because you have defensive CC, and that allows for your teammates that then offer up damage. Split, you're not really useful, so they want to group. You counter the group a split push. If you don't really want to split push yourself,
hey, Hillesang is down. He gets
Rawless
the timbers up, but Rawless follows suit. There's the Victor damage you were talking about, Crepo. We're going to see the suicide from Cogmore. Is going to be able to pick up a kill onto Power of Evil. Vardex is getting focused out. The mine knocks him up in the air, and the fangs get sunk in from Jankos, and he gets out alive. Vander finds a two-man pulverize. It allows Jankos to escape. Horo's looking for more. He's found a bird is the word before he eats a cocoon. Stunned in place. He does find Nuktak. The egg was not available, and Chachi is tanky for days. He's going to look for more. The most exciting battle ever. Flame Spitter is out. Headbutt is out. Run, Chachi. Dredge line. He connects onto Vander, and then he runs out of mana.
That was a fantastic turnaround from Horo. Really good read in that fight, because we saw Anivia and Jankos. So Nuktak and Jankos on Anivia and Elise playing at the outskirts of that fight, but he turned it around with a tunnel. Forced the flash from Jankos too. And numbers disadvantage. Really good offensive read by Horo. And yeah, the Baron baits are being turned around. Right now, yeah, face checking in that area is incredibly hard against Anivia Q. Good Q.
And Tibbers.
And from Nuktak, but the response Tibbers was exactly what we needed in that fight. Vardex steps a little too close. Power of Evil, once you close the gap on him, you can get him. Same for Anivia. Once you get close to Anivia, she's probably dead. But both these champions, both these control mages are so good at not allowing that to happen.
Exceptional team fighting from
this
UOL.
Is really good read. Nuktak drops no more egg because he used it in the last fight. Jankos almost dies to damage here. Has to flash out at the end. Good peeling from Chachi. Chachi is becoming nigh unkillable.
Yeah.
For this very magic damage heavy Roccat gaming.
Even going to be building up some armor shortly. Nuktak does have his rebirth passive available. Came up while we were watching that replay. Mr. Rawls from Beyond the Grave. Cathy and Surprise doing some work. Roccat though, they are the ones with Baron control.
Yeah, good Baron vision for Roccat, and they're attempting a bait. They're not going to start it because they know it'll be a fight and a face check anyways. It's dangerous to do this. They've been spotted around the corner. You got to fake out attacks then. You need to go for that Oscar. Just don't stand still, you know. Do something.
So both teams have improved their team play, but not improved their acting. Dredge line, it connects on Nuktak! Hillesang, he stuns up Roccat! The Chaos Storm is out! Power of Evil is running right through the back line! Nuktak's gonna get turned into an egg, but he's gonna get cooked for breakfast! Unicorns of Love have found 3, have found 4! Jankos is trying to run away! It simply will not be enough! They lost Vardex in the process, but Unicorns, what a fight!
That was a fantastic read by Vijachachi, and I'm really liking the way he's playing.
Oh, Hillesang, maybe in a little bit of trouble. Tibbers is coming to help, though.
You can block the cocoons. He's just wasting time, that's enough.
Where's the rest of the team? Unicorns, they're pushing down the middle tower. Hillesang, he's not going to get the kill. Skittering Frenzy. Jankos trades, but he's done his job. This should be an inhibitor turret, if not inhibitor as well.
Yeah, I think he could have backed out though. A little greedy by Hylissang. Thought he had enough damage, but at least obviously can sustain with that W. In the end, it doesn't really matter all that much. What matters for me is that dredge line from Vizicachi. He finds Nuktak at the outskirts of that group. And then Hylissang, instead of... Look where the Tibbers goes. Instead of piling on to Nuktak, he goes for the backup.
Wow!
He could have opted for a 1 or 2 man Tibbers, but he read that fight perfectly so he could go for the 4 man Tibbers, then Chaos Storm, and then Power of Evil is aggressively moving into the fight because they just can't turn on him. And then obviously Vardek's getting focused by Jankos, but damage is done. Once you group against this combination, but you group so tightly that you offer up and engage, yeah, you're done for.
Fantastic team fights from UOL. They did get that inhibitor, Crepo.
But they need to start translating these fights into actual monumental advantages. We're thinking about Dragons here, we're thinking about Barons, potential split push. They got 1 inhibitor, so now the value of that Banner of Command minion goes up. Still trying to track the side lanes. No minion was upgraded by Chachi. Oh well, his Banner of Command is on cooldown, so I'm trying to find where the hell...
We've seen Chachi using it in the bottom lane. It is bottom lane, and it was just a ranged minion?
So he didn't wait for the waves. Cannons come out every minute mark at this point in the game. So on the dot, every minute you want to buff that cannon minion. I think it's worth waiting for, honestly, because the pressure a Banner of Command minion exerts on the map is so huge, because then you can rotate to the other side of the map. Combine that with Rek'Sai, for example. You know, Rek'Sai split push one side, Banner of the Command on the other side, immediately collapse towards the Baron.
So Unicorns may go back to the Dragon/Baron play. They're on Dragon at the moment. This will be number 4.
Yeah.
6-minute timer until Aspect. Jat did a fantastic Jat 22, or League of Learning rather, on how to beat teams with 5 dragons. We'll see whether or not Roccat paid attention in 6 minutes, or if they'll even let it happen. But no deep vision from Unicorns. So this is something they have to invest some time into.
Yeah, they're slowing down. Whenever Power of Evil and Hylissang use their flashes in fights, they're hesitant to go for another fight because they really need that to close the gap. The counter to a wall is obviously flashing over it. The counter to Cocoon's flashing over it. You know, the counter to an Alistar is flashing by him, you know, speeding up, ignoring him. Then close the gap immediately, wombo combo, you know, annihilate your opponent. Hard engage is what you're looking for, so that's also why we see Distortion Boots finished on Hylissang here. Just the more flashes he can get, the more flash tibbers to initiate these fights combined with Vizicachi. It's obviously what you're looking for.
Well, this is exactly the game I was looking for. Very interesting, exciting plays, and Unicorns are approaching 40 minutes with the lead, with the kill lead, with an exposed base from Roccat, super minions as well.
Yeah, 29 kills in 39 minutes, or 40 minutes is definitely a good average to have.
They seem to be posturing, I mean, they're sticking in the lane of the supers, side lane still pushing in favor of UOL.
They're waiting.
Is this is it just cooldowns and then a little bit more aggressive play?
It is timing and cooldowns. Look at the side waves. The time they will hit is about the time that Power of Evil's flash will be back up.
And they are going to find a small opportunity to get a ward just above the Wraith camp from Roccat. Unicorns look pushing in a little bit more. Hilly with those boots of mobility, also pushing in.
Bot lane, killer position. Looks like it does. Want to push out towards Roccat, but it'll still take time. I don't like this Baron, so for me, this is too forced. Like, just gotta decide what you want, Unicorns. Of course, Chachi doesn't really go down too much, so they can bait this.
Well, they want the fight. Chachi's going to get caught by the Cocoon, not going to be able to find a target, but Vander's way out of position. Unbreakable will keep him alive for a few seconds longer, but he flashes in. Nuktak's already been turned into an egg. Power of Evil's trying to kill him, and he'll be able to. Jankos is now trying to sink the fangs in. This is a battle on 2 fronts. Everybody from UOL's flashing red, but it doesn't matter because there's no resistance. Jankos follows Nuktak to the grave. Unicorns able to get the kills they wanted, and big minion waves.
Tight knot and a little dance from Coach.
Oh, Chachi, it's a summoner heal. It's going to be able to secure. Hylissang gets a kill credit though, and it looked like Chachi got away with his life.
Ross is out of mana. Kog'Maw W doesn't cost any mana. Power of Evil's looking at the Nexus turrets. Top lane inhibitor is being sieged upon. 2 members basing though, so gonna just be a good game yet. Good flash here. No ultimate on Banner. He goes down. Vardek flashes on Rallis.
Radex is looking for more. Teleport will keep a minion alive. As you can see, the Banner of Command. Empowered minions on the side. Unicorns of Love at 42 minutes have dropped the Nexus turrets. And from start to finish, Unicorns of Love have dictated the tempo of the game. 10, 1, and 6. Power of Evil when he carries hard.
Yeah, good opening performance. I like it when you come out with aggression in the first game of a best of 5. Catch your opponent off guard. And Roccat, I think they have to reconsider their draft or play it accordingly. I think it could have worked should they prioritize the right things. Anivia, Elise on paper sound nice, you know, for double CC combo. Cleanse kind of ruins that, especially Victor, who can play at such great distance. And you saw it, the lack of pressure early forced Nuke to go out of mana. The roams by Hylissang, especially that first one, that was communicated because he talked to Horo. Horo said, I'm going to gank top. Hylissang then said, okay, instead of, I think, finishing Sightson, I will go Moby Boots. I will meet you there.
Yeah.
Flash Tibbers, that turned the game around. That was the momentum Unicorns needed. And they didn't really let go up until the mid-game where ideally you can play it out a little better, but they still were the ones to make the move, take the initiative. And I think in a very passive matchup on both sides, that's what you have to do.
Congratulations to you all. I like some of the itemization that I hope the analyst desk will talk about. We're going to head over there in just a moment to break down that first game in this best of 5.
Don't twist our arm, Trevor, but we will. But first off, super excited to see these two teams. Team fighting comms, fighting. That's the beginning of a series. There's a lot more to break down, so go ahead.
Let's just start by praising Unicorns of Love for saying they're scaling poke compositions. We ran into the regular split. It's not going to work. We need to change it up. The meta is moving on. Power Weaver locking in Victor for the first time this split here. And let's just pull up
even more surprising than the Anivia.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's key for me because Power Vivo as a mid laner had fallen a little bit behind in terms of champion picks, and it was harder for him to carry games. And now he started pulling out this Victor here, which is so key for the pick and ban phase moving forward also in this matchup.
And I really liked just the Victor pick out of Unicorns for a couple of reasons, because the Orianna ban comes out because they say, hey, look, we know you've got to blind pick your mid lane. You haven't really played the Izzy, haven't played the Victor, so what are you going to play? Turns out he's been practicing the Victor, picks it up this time. Also, interestingly, no Shen prioritized at all in this matchup.
But here's the thing, if we look at the composition that Roccat was building here, which is of course a little bit different because of the Anivia coming in. It is a kite composition where Anivia works really well in terms of protecting a hyper carry. Again, you add a ton of CC, you got a slow from Mr. Raleigh, you got the slow coming in from Nuke Dog. So as long as we have Unicorns of Love forced to engage the objectives on them, you can use all this zone control here. Problem is Annie. Annie comes in, she can build distortion early on. So again, first of all, you have Tibbers with the long range. Also, you get the flash cooldown. And then the key thing that happened in this matchup was that Visichachi got a very early ban of command. That meant suddenly the whole game is now turned, because what he's going to do is he's going to buff up one of the side minions, or like one of the minions in the side lanes every single time. So he creates a push right there that Roccat always have to go and deal with. That means suddenly Roccat cannot properly group up for objectives, or it forces Roccat into a situation where they have to engage onto Unicorns to stop some of the pressure coming from multiple lanes. And can you do that with Anivia? No. Suddenly Power Vivo becomes the carry in the backline, nobody can reach him. And Unicorns can just do whatever they want. They can engage, they can disengage.
Yeah, banner of command, very important. The early magic resistance coming out of them as well, actually saying, okay, you're going to have to go very late if you want to penetrate what we have. And Nautilus was de facto unkillable after a while. And what was central in this, what we may forgetting, we were always saying, okay, Unicorns let it go late. Now they had a comp that they had to force it early, and Hilly was so crucial in that in the beginning. Let's pull up one of the replays, because he makes a lot happen in the early.
He's a god.
Yeah, I mean, he's back on form by this game. This is the very first gank for First Blood. So basically, this is after they've swapped down to bottom lane. Hilly's not even anywhere near top. The top lane right now isn't exactly the important thing either. Unicorns have said at some point in the next minute or so, we're going for Steve. Coincidentally, there's a fight. Basically, at this point, Hylissang says, Varags, we've lost the trade, we've lost lane pressure. I'm getting out of this. This is what I've done before. I'm going elsewhere on the map to sort the early game out.
Yeah, and then we see the second fight also in the early game. Vanda's kind of baiting in the bush here to start set up the fight, but look here. TP from Steve is so far back, it's very difficult for him to join. Chachi, on the other hand, he has a good ward to join in with. The fight gets instantly won by Unicorns. And again, it's so key with certain item changes that happen in the game. Prepper was highlighting the Moby Boots for Hylissang, so he could rush to top lane a bit faster. But also the early trade that happened between the two dual lanes that forced Vardax back to base on a pickaxe. That was why the lane was lost. Had he been able to pick up BF Sword and into a Phage, they could have gone even, it would have been okay. But when he had a pickaxe into Phage, he had level 6 on Mr. Rales, the lane was basically over in that case. Hylissang's like, you know what, I'm not going to waste my time, I'm on Annie, I'm going to start roaming. Exactly like he did last split in the playoffs, and he started making plays around the map, and that snowballs the whole thing. And this comp here as well, from Roccat, with Elise and Alistar, you're setting up for tower dives. You're setting up for early dives where you don't want to risk a gank. No, you want to go straight for the dive. You have damage reduction, repel, everything. Problem is, you had 0 pushing lanes. Rumble is going to get pushed in by Nautilus. Mid is going to nullify each other. And bot lane, the Civ is going to push in as well. So there was no dives to be set up at all after they start falling behind.
Yeah, with the banner of command, the lanes were pushed, so Roccat had to engage, but it ended up being Hilly, and we're gonna show the last replay here of the decisive team fight where he decides to flash in, and it was just a beautiful combo.
And this is just the thing Unicorns could do. You can wait for the engage and you can kite back with Sivir and Victor, or you can have the flash distortion coming in, and of course Chachi being that front tank and having such a fantastic performance together with the rest of Unicorns. I'm very excited now for this series because we saw these changes. It is no longer pure late game scaling for Power of Evil and so on. Mid game power, and it worked.
And that team fight all stemmed from Roccat being a little greedy. They were in the Baron pit. The Unicorns are calling their bluff already. Roccat have 2 options. You either go up and lose your mid tower, or you try and go through the jungle and hope they don't engage on you. But it's an Annie and a Nautilus with Righteous Glory. That's just, it's greed. Maybe that'll work once every 4 or 5 times if the team are really playing just back and defensive. But Unicorns had showed that they weren't playing defensively. Every time there was the opportunity, get onto one of the carries, Unicorns would just start the fight.
We do need to see, though, more focus on vision control, both teams. 0 side zones from the junglers, no upgraded sweepers. That is why the game also stalled out. They couldn't bait the Baron properly, and Roccat couldn't bait the Baron either because there was 0 vision control for both teams, honestly.
Yeah, although this was an exciting ending for UOL, I still think it became pretty close, and I think we have got an amazing series on our hands. We need to take a quick break to recover from that, but when we return, it is Game 2 between the Unicorns of Love and Roccat. But first, let's turn to the top lane and see how Steve went from baking cookies to the big stage.
170 grammes. Okay. I started playing League of Legends right after the beta in October 2009. Like Twisted Tree Line, playing Nunu. Yeah. Disons qu'on va mettre à peu près à moitié. Hop, ça doit être bon. Ça fait longtemps que j'ai pas cuisiné. I was playing during high school, and I didn't think about going pro or anything, but I always knew I was pretty good, kind of, like always top, let's say, 200. Okay. In my last year of high school, so it was season 3, I started tryharding a bit too, and I mained 1 role, so I decided to pick top lane, because I thought it would be the best role for me. I loved playing Jarvan, and I had some success, and that's when I started joining teams. I decided to take a gap here and try to go pro on League. J'ai fait une team qui s'appelait Steve Baked Cookies vers la saison 3 comme ça. C'était parce que en fait j'avais un délire avec des potes que je faisais des cookies et du coup on n'avait pas trop de noms donc on a décidé d'appeler la team comme ça. Et puis ça sonnait bien. But it didn't work out that good for me because I just had teams, like amateur teams, and what happens with these teams is you try to qualify for events like LANs or Challenger Series, for example, and if you fail, well, the team always disbands in the end. So I never got to really grow with a team or make a team that would join LCS, and that's when I got the Roccat offer. Okay, Yamato, you can come help me out? All you have to do is make little balls and put in the, like...
Little balls?
And kind of, yeah.
That makes more sense.
There we go.
You know, when you say ball to a Swedish person, I think, like meatball, you know?
You can do a ball, but like I have this technique that I've mastered over the years. I did not expect this at all, like I didn't expect this offer, but I knew, like I was maybe not known for my my play or anything, but because I didn't do that much on my amateur teams, but I mean the results were not so good. But my players knew my attitude, like that I was pretty positive, that I wanted to learn the game.
I heard from a lot of players that played with him, it felt like his personality was correct, like the mindset was correct for a new player in the LCS. We don't need to cook it. You just eat it raw. It's good already, man. I think the best part about Steve is his personality. He's very humble. There tends to be a lot of arrogance around the scene, and Steve is always humble. And this is a trait that I value very highly.
I just want to be the best player I can possibly be. I just, now I can see what I'm worth compared to other players, and I know that it's just a matter of like experience because it's my first LCS split, but also it's everyone's goal to go to Worlds, and since it's the team's goal, it's my goal too. Here you go, Yamata. Some delicious cookies. Bon appétit.